My son called me. "Mum, we moved to another state last week. We forgot to tell you." I was frozen stiff for 5 seconds. I replied, "It's all right, son. Good luck." I hung up. I opened my laptop and sent an email to my lawyer with a very special annex. 5 seconds. That was all it took for me to understand that my life had just split in two. Robert's voice sounded distant, almost mechanical, as if he were reading a script someone else had written for him. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was preparing the turkey with mashed potatoes that my grandson, Matthew, loved so much when the phone vibrated on the kitchen table. I saw his name on the screen and my heart skipped a beat. It had been 3 weeks since I'd heard from him. "Mum, I'm calling you quickly because I'm on my way out," he began, without even asking how I was. "We moved to Austin, Texas last week. Vanessa got an incredible job there. And well, we forgot to tell you. You know how these things are. Everything happened so fast. We forgot to tell you." As if I were the next-door neighbor, as if I were the lady selling cookies on the corner, as if I weren't the woman who gave birth to him, who stayed up all night nursing him when he had pneumonia at 7 years old, who sold her grandmother's jewelry to pay for his college. "It's all right, son," I replied. My voice came out calmer than I expected. "Good luck with this new chapter." I hung up before he could notice the trembling in my hands. The silence left in my kitchen was so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. I looked at the turkey steaming on the stovetop, the freshly baked biscuits covered with an embroidered cloth, Matthew's toys that I still kept in a basket by the dining area. All of that, which I had prepared with so much love, suddenly felt like a mockery. But I didn't cry, not at that moment. I walked toward my room with steps that seemed to weigh tons, opened my dresser drawer and took out my laptop. The one Robert had given me 2 years ago, saying, "To keep you connected, Mum. You're not getting any younger." How ironic. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed I shared with George for 32 years before cancer took him from me. I opened my email with trembling but determined fingers. I typed the address for Mr. Williamson, my lawyer for life. He had handled George's will. He had been there when I inherited the property in the Upper West Side, that piece of land that is now worth more than $3 million. The same property where, just 8 months ago, I agreed to let Robert and Vanessa build our family home. Our home. What a joke. I drafted the message short, direct, without drama. "Mr. Williamson, I need us to start the process we discussed last week. I'm attaching all the documentation. It's time to act." And here came the best part. The annex. That file I had been secretly preparing for months, while they thought I was just a silly, sentimental old woman. Photographs, screenshots, audio recordings, copies of the documents I signed, without reading carefully, according to Vanessa, bank statements, everything. Every documented humiliation, every lie, every cent they took from me. I pressed send and closed the laptop with a dry click that echoed in my empty room. Because here is the truth that no one tells you when you are a mother. There is a moment when love meets dignity at a crossroads, and you have to choose. For years I chose love. I swallowed humiliations. I closed my eyes to disrespect. I justified the unjustifiable. "It's just that Vanessa comes from a difficult family," I would tell myself. "It's just that Robert is stressed with work. It's just that being a daughter-in-law isn't easy." Lies, I told myself, so I wouldn't have to face the most painful truth. My son had become a stranger, and I had allowed myself to be made an inconvenience in my own life. But that call, that "we forgot to tell you," spoken with such indifference, was the final straw. Or rather, it was the hammer blow that shattered the glass into 1,000 irreparable pieces. I got up from the bed, went back to the kitchen and turned off the stove. The turkey could wait, or maybe no one would ever eat it. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that for the first time in 4 years, ever since Vanessa entered our lives like a silent hurricane, I had made a decision, and this time, no one but me would be in control. I looked out the window onto the street. The children were playing soccer. Mr. Peterson was watering his plants. Mrs. Lois was sweeping her sidewalk like every afternoon. Life was following its normal course for everyone else. But for me, everything had just changed. I grabbed my phone again and looked at the last photo I had of Robert with me. He was 6 years old. We were in Central Park. He was hugging my neck and smiling with those crooked teeth that made me so tender. "I love you, Mum," said the message he had written that afternoon so many years ago. That boy no longer existed, and the woman who accepted anything just to not lose him didn't exist either. Because sometimes true love isn't enduring, sometimes it's letting go. And sometimes letting go means fighting for what is yours before they take everything from you, including your dignity. I put the phone in my pocket and took a deep breath. In 72 hours, my son would receive a legal notification that would change everything. And when that happened, he would finally understand that forgetting to tell your mother you moved has consequences, because I hadn't forgotten anything. Absolutely nothing. If this story is touching your heart or reminds you of someone close to you, don't leave. Subscribe to the channel to continue accompanying me on this story, because what's coming, believe me, you cannot miss it. 4 years ago, when Robert called me to tell me he wanted to introduce me to someone special, I felt that emotion only a mother can understand. My son, my only son, had finally found someone who made him happy after so long focused only on his job as an engineer. It was a Sunday in October. I had prepared the mac and cheese casserole, Robert's favorite dish since he was a kid. I set the table with the linen tablecloth George gave me on our 15th anniversary. I took out the good china. I even bought fresh flowers for the centerpiece. I wanted everything to be perfect. When the doorbell rang, I wiped my hands on my apron and opened the door with a huge smile. Vanessa was almost 5 feet 7 inches tall. She wore very high heels that made her seem even more imposing. And she wore a wine-colored pantsuit that screamed money. Her brown hair fell perfectly over her shoulders. Her makeup was impeccable. She was beautiful. I couldn't deny it. But there was something in her eyes, something I couldn't decipher at that moment. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Helen," she said, extending her hand instead of giving me a hug. Her handshake was firm, almost aggressive. "Robert has told me so much about you." Robert was glowing. I had never seen him like that, with that light in his eyes, that unwavering smile. He was truly in love, and I wanted him to be happy. So I ignored that little voice inside me that told me something wasn't right. During the meal, Vanessa talked non-stop about her job at a consulting firm, about her trips to Chicago and San Francisco, about her ambitious plans. Robert barely got a word in. He just stared at her, mesmerized, while she dominated every second of the conversation. "What a cozy house," Vanessa said, looking around my dining room. The way she pronounced cozy made me feel as if she had said small or old-fashioned. "Robert told me you've been here for almost 30 years. 32, I corrected, trying to keep my tone friendly. "I grew up here. My son grew up here. This house has history." Sure. History is important," she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Although sometimes you have to know when it's time to move on, don't you think?" That was the first sign, but I let it go. The following months were a whirlwind. Robert came to visit me less and less. Before, he would spend Sundays with me, help me with house repairs, and we would talk for hours over coffee. Now everything was excuses. Vanessa wants us to go to that new restaurant. We have plans with Vero's friends. Her family invited us to the Hamptons. Her family as if his own didn't exist. In February, 6 months after meeting her, Robert called me excited. Mum, I proposed to Vanessa and she said yes. We're getting married in August. 6 months of dating. 6 months to decide to spend the rest of your life with someone. Don't you think it's too fast, son? I dared to ask. You're barely getting to know her. Mum, when you find the right person, you know it. You and Dad got married pretty fast, didn't you? He was right about that. George and I had gotten married a year after meeting. But it was different, or so I wanted to believe. The wedding was at an elegant venue in Napa Valley. Vanessa wanted everything perfect, everything controlled. I offered to help with the expenses. After all, I was the groom's mother. Don't worry, Mrs. Helen, Vanessa told me with that condescending smile. My parents have already covered everything. You just relax and enjoy. I felt like a guest at my own son's wedding. During the ceremony, when the officiant asked if anyone had any objections, a thought crossed my mind. But I pushed it back, deep down. Robert looked so happy, so complete. Who was I to ruin that? After the wedding, things changed even faster. Robert and Vanessa moved to an apartment in Greenwich Village, a nice, modern, but very expensive place. When I went to visit them for the first time, Vanessa opened the door with a strained smile. Mrs. Helen, what a surprise. Robert didn't tell me you were coming. I talked to him this morning. He told me to stop by, I replied, carrying a container with the chili I had cooked for them. Oh, yes. Well, come in. Although I would have preferred we coordinate beforehand, to have the house presentable. The house was immaculate. Too immaculate. Like a showroom, not a home. That visit lasted 20 minutes. Vanessa had an important conference, and I understood that her job was very demanding. 3 months later, on his 34th birthday, Robert didn't answer my calls. I called him 5 times. Nothing. I sent him messages. Nothing. I spent the entire afternoon looking at the 3-layer cake I had baked for him, watching it sit there, intact, mocking me. The next day I received a brief message. Sorry, Mum. It slipped my mind. Vanessa organized a surprise party with her friends, and I disconnected from my phone. It slipped his mind. His birthday. The day I brought him into the world after 18 hours of labor. That night I cried for the first time. I cried hugging George's pocket watch, that watch he always carried, and that I now kept in my nightstand like a treasure. Oh, George, I whispered in the darkness of my room. What is happening to our son? But the worst was still to come. I couldn't even imagine what Vanessa had planned, or how she would use the mother's love I felt as a weapon against me. Because when December arrived and they invited me to spend Christmas with them, I thought things would get better. I thought maybe it was a matter of time, of Vanessa getting used to me. How wrong I was. The Christmas dinner was at Vanessa's parents' house in Beverly Hills, a mansion with 3 stories, a yard, and even a fountain. I arrived with my prime rib and my apple pie, proud to share our traditions. Vanessa's mother, Gabrielle, greeted me with feigned kindness. Oh, Mrs. Helen, you shouldn't have bothered. We already have the dinner catered here. My food ended up in the kitchen, tucked away among the dirty dishes. During dinner, I was seated at the end of the table, far from Robert. I heard laughter, toasts, conversations I wasn't a part of. At one point, Vanessa raised her glass and said, I toast to this beautiful family that welcomed me, to my parents-in-law who are no longer with us, but who would surely be proud of Robert. George wasn't there, but I was. I was there, alive, present, invisible. Robert didn't even correct his wife. He just toasted with a smile. That night I returned home by cab, alone, while everyone else was still celebrating. And there, in the back seat of that car that smelled of pine and old cigarettes, I made a decision. I was not going to beg for a place in my son's life anymore. If they wanted to push me away, let them try, but it wouldn't be as easy as they thought. The following months were like watching someone die in slow motion. Every unanswered call, every excuse, every "I'll call you later, Mom" that never came, was like tearing a piece of my soul away. February arrived with its cold air and its empty promises. On my 66th birthday, I woke up early as always. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and waited. I waited for the call that always used to come at 7 in the morning without fail. The call where Robert would sing "Happy Birthday" out of tune but with all his heart, just like when he was a kid. 7 passed. 8. 9. At 10 in the morning, I received a text message. "Happy birthday, Mum. Sorry for not calling. Had a meeting early. We love you very much." We love you. Plural. As if Vanessa's love for me was real. I didn't answer. I just stared at that cold, soulless message, and something inside me broke for good. But life went on, because that's what life does. It goes on even if you are falling apart inside. In March, my friend Laura invited me to her family gathering. "Come on, Helen. You can't stay alone all the time. You need a distraction." Laura had known me since we were girls. She could read my sadness, even though I tried to hide it. I went to that gathering, and that's where I heard the words that would confirm my worst suspicions. I was in the kitchen helping to serve the punch when I heard the voice of Rochelle, Laura's cousin, talking in the living room. I didn't intend to eavesdrop, but my name floated into the conversation like an alarm. "Yes, my friend Sandy, who works with Vanessa, told me. She says that at the office, she constantly complains about her mother-in-law, that she is too dependent, that she's always seeking attention, that Robert can't live his life because his mother won't let go." The ladle fell from my hands, splashing hot punch on the floor. "And what does Robert say?" another voice asked. "Well, according to Sandy, Robert doesn't defend her anymore. She says Vanessa has him completely dominated, that Mrs. Helen called crying one day because she hadn't heard from them in 3 weeks, and Vanessa told Robert that his mother was manipulative, that she used crying to make him feel guilty." Manipulative. Me. The woman who had worked double shifts as a secretary so that my son could study engineering at a private university. The one who sold the deeds to the small plot of land my mother bequeathed me in the Bronx to pay for his exchange program to Europe. The one who became a widow and never remarried, to dedicate all her attention to that child who now saw me as a burden. I left that house without saying goodbye. Laura caught up with me on the street. "Helen, wait. Don't listen to them. It's just gossip." "Gossip?" I said, feeling the tears starting to burn my eyes. "Laura, my son doesn't talk to me. When he does, it's out of obligation. His wife hates me, and he lets her. That's not gossip. That's my reality." That night, alone in my house, I did something I never thought I would do. I opened Facebook and looked up Vanessa's profile. I didn't usually use social media, but I needed to understand. I needed to see what she was showing the world. Her profile was full of photos. Her and Robert at elegant restaurants. Her and Robert at the beach. Her and Robert at parties with friends. Perfect smiles, posed pictures, sappy captions about true love. I kept scrolling down and found a photo from Christmas. The same Christmas where I had been, invisible in that mansion. The photo showed Vanessa, Robert, and her parents. The caption read, "Family Christmas. Blessed to have the best in-laws in the world. I didn't exist. There wasn't even a mention, a comment, nothing. It was as if I hadn't been there, as if I didn't exist. I slammed the laptop shut so hard that the screen shook. My hands were sweating and my heart was beating so fast that I thought I would have a heart attack right there. But the worst came in April, during the family dinner organized by George's sister, my sister-in-law Patricia. It was her daughter's birthday, and we all gathered at her house in upstate New York. I arrived early, as always, to help with the preparations. Robert and Vanessa arrived 2 hours late. When they entered, Vanessa was wearing an ivory silk blouse that must have cost more than 2 months of my rent. Robert was carrying a bottle of wine that probably wasn't cheap either. They looked elegant, successful, perfect. "Sorry we're late," Vanessa said with that smile I knew so well. "We had a breakfast with investors. You know how business is." Patricia gave them their place at the main table. I had to sit with the distant cousins, near the kitchen. During the meal, Vanessa monopolized all the attention. She talked about her promotion at the company, about the new SUV they were about to buy, about their plans to travel to Asia in the summer. "And well," she said at one point, delicately wiping her mouth with her napkin, "we are also looking at options to move to a bigger house. The apartment has gotten too small for us." Robert nodded excitedly. "Yes, we are looking in the Malibu or Venice area, something with a yard, 3 bedrooms, that has potential." 3 bedrooms, one for them, one for a study, one for guests. They never mentioned one for the grandmother, for me. "What about Mrs. Helen?" Patricia asked. Bless my sister-in-law. Hadn't you thought of something where there would also be space for her? I mean, so she can be close to the grandchild when it arrives. The silence that followed was so dense it could be cut with a knife. Vanessa let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, Patricia, what ideas? Mrs. Helen is doing very well in her house. She has her things, her memories, her independence. I don't think she'd want to move at her age, right, Mrs. Helen?" Everyone turned to look at me. I was in the back, near the kitchen, like a second-class guest at my own family's party. "No, of course not," I lied, feeling my throat close up. "I'm very comfortable where I am." Vanessa smiled triumphantly. Robert didn't even look at me. That afternoon, when everyone was saying goodbye with hugs and promises to see each other soon, I approached Robert. I gently took his arm. "Son, can we talk for a moment?" He looked at Vanessa, as if asking for permission. She checked her watch. "Robert, we have to go. We're meeting the Martins at 6. "Mum, it can be another day," my son, my only son, told me, without even looking me in the eyes. "We're running late." I watched them walk away. Robert opened the car door for Vanessa, with a gentleness he no longer dedicated to me. She got in elegantly, without looking back, without saying goodbye. Patricia approached and put a hand on my shoulder. "Helen, that woman is not good for Robert. Anyone can see it." "But he doesn't see it," I whispered. "Or he doesn't want to see it." That night, back in my empty house, I sat in the dark living room. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't turn on the TV. I just stayed there, in the same armchair where Robert and I used to watch movies on Fridays, where he did his homework while I knitted, where we laughed and talked until we fell asleep. Now that armchair was just mine. And the house, so full of memories, felt like a mausoleum. But something was changing inside me. It wasn't just sadness. It was something darker, colder. It was the beginning of the end of my patience. Because it's one thing to be ignored, and another very different thing to be erased. And Vanessa was erasing me, line by line, from my son's life. What she didn't know was that I still had ink, and I was about to write my own ending. May arrived with its suffocating heat and with a call that would change everything. It was Saturday morning. I was watering the plants in the yard when the phone rang. Robert. My heart gave a foolish, hopeful leap, as if it were the first time he had called me in months. "Mum, how are you?" His voice sounded strangely cheerful, almost forced. "It's been a long time since we talked." 3 months. 3 exact months since we had had a real conversation. "Here, son, same old, same old." "That's good. That's good. Listen, Mum. Vanessa and I want to stop by this afternoon. We have something important to tell you. Something that is going to make you very happy. Something important. How ironic. When something truly important had happened in my life, like when I had my gallbladder removed last year, he wasn't there. He arrived at the hospital when I was already in recovery, with a wilted bouquet of flowers he had clearly bought at the gas station. "Of course, son. I'll wait for you." I hung up, and a strange sensation ran through my body. It wasn't excitement. It was something more like a premonition, that intuition that mothers develop after years of knowing their children. I spent the afternoon cleaning, cooking. I made iced tea, cut up some fruit, made potato and bacon sliders. Part of me still wanted to please him, still sought his approval as if he were that 7-year-old boy who hugged me and told me I made the best food in the world. They arrived at 5 in the afternoon. Vanessa was wearing a beige dress, dark glasses that she didn't take off until she entered the house, and that smile that I had already learned to decipher: fake, calculating, dangerous. "Mrs. Helen, your house looks lovely," she said, looking around as if it were the first time she had been there, when she had been there at least 10 times. "It has a very traditional charm." Traditional. Another elegant way of saying old, outdated. We sat in the living room. Robert was nervous, restless, avoiding my gaze. Vanessa, on the other hand, was relaxed, in total control of the situation. "Mum, we have wonderful news," Robert began, finally looking at me. His eyes were shining, but I couldn't tell if it was happiness or something else. "Vanessa is pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." The world stopped for a second. Grandmother. I was going to be a grandmother, a grandchild, the continuation of George, of me, of our family. Tears sprang up without permission. I stood up to hug Robert, but Vanessa stepped between us, formally extending her hand as if we were business partners. "Thank you, Mrs. Helen. We are very excited." I sat down again, wiping my tears with the back of my hand, trying to process the information. "But that's not all," Vanessa continued, crossing her legs elegantly. "We also want to share our plans for the future with you. Robert and I have been thinking a lot about what kind of life we want to give our baby." Here it came. I felt it in the air, in the way Vanessa leaned forward, in how Robert looked at the floor. "The apartment where we live is too small to raise a child. We need space, a yard, a place where they can grow up safe and happy." "You're right," I said, still not understanding where this was going. "You could look for a rental house while you save up to buy something of your own." Vanessa let out a little laugh that made my skin crawl. "Well, Mrs. Helen, we actually came to propose something much better, something that would benefit all of us." Robert finally spoke. "Mum, we've been thinking about your property, the one in the Upper West Side, the one Dad left you." "My property?" "The property that George bought 20 years ago with all his life savings. The property that had increased in value year after year because the area became one of the most desirable in the city. 15,000 square feet in a prime location. My inheritance, my security." What about my property? I asked, feeling my mouth go dry. Well, Vanessa took over as if it were her conversation, her decision. The truth is that at your age, Mrs. Helen, maintaining a property that size is complicated. You have to pay property taxes, utilities, and you're not even using it. It's just sitting there, empty, without any purpose. It's my legacy, I replied, firmer than I expected. It's what George left me. Exactly, Robert interrupted, with that soft voice he used when he wanted to convince me of something. It's your legacy, Mum, but it could be much more. We could build a beautiful house there, a big, 2-story house with a yard, and you could live with us. We would be a real family. A real family, as if we hadn't been before. As if the last 4 years of distance and disdain were just my imagination. We would build everything with our savings, Vanessa continued. We have very good contacts with architects and contractors. We would do something modern, functional, and obviously we would have a special space for you, Mrs. Helen. Your own bedroom with a bathroom, so you can have privacy but still be close to your grandson. My own bedroom, on my own property. How generous. I don't know, I said slowly, trying to order my thoughts. It's a very big thing. I need to think about it. Vanessa's mask cracked for a second. I saw frustration in her eyes. Mom! Robert knelt in front of me, taking my hands. It had been so long since he had touched me that I almost forgot what it felt like. Think about it. You could watch your grandson grow up every day. You wouldn't be alone in this big house. We would all be together, as a family. Isn't that what you've always wanted? He was right. It was exactly what I had always wanted. To be close to my son, to my future grandson. Not to wake up alone every morning in this house full of memories and empty of life. And how would it work exactly? I asked, feeling my resistance begin to weaken. The expenses, the construction, the ownership. Everything would be very simple, Vanessa said, pulling some perfectly folded papers from her purse. My friend Barry is a notary. He would help us with all the paperwork. Basically, you would keep ownership of the property, but you would give us legal permission to build. It's a temporary contract while the house is being built. Afterward, when everything is ready, we can make the final arrangements so that we are all registered as owners. All very transparent, all legal. The papers trembled in my hands. There was fine print, long paragraphs, legal terms I didn't understand. I don't know, let me read it carefully. Consult with Mr. Williamson. Mr. Williamson? Vanessa almost spat out the name. That man must be like 80 years old, Mum. With all due respect, we need up-to-date lawyers who understand how things work now. Mr. Williamson was 74 and had been George's trusted lawyer for 30 years, but Vanessa had a way of making you doubt everything, even the people you trusted most. Mum, Robert squeezed my hands. Trust me. When have I ever let you down? That question hurt more than he could imagine, because the answer was constantly, for the last 4 years. But at that moment, with his pleading eyes and the promise of a grandson, of a united family, of not being alone anymore, all that clouded my judgment. All right, I whispered, but I want to read everything before signing. Vanessa smiled, and that smile should have warned me that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of contradictory emotions. On one hand, Robert was back in my life. He called me almost every day, stopped by to see me on weekends. He even accompanied me to the supermarket one Saturday like when he was a kid. On the other hand, something didn't feel right. It was as if everything was too perfect, too sudden. Vanessa organized everything with military efficiency. She arrived at my house with folders full of blueprints, catalogues of finishes, construction company quotes. Always smiling, always kind, always pushing to make things move faster. "Mrs. Helen, look how beautiful these porcelain floors would look in the living room," she would say, showing me decorating magazines. "And in your bedroom, we could put a huge closet with space for all your things." My bedroom. Every time she said it, something in my stomach twisted. One afternoon in July, Vanessa arrived with Barry, the notary. He was a man in his mid-40s, expensive suit, practiced smile, handshake that was too firm. "Mrs. Helen, it's a pleasure. Vanessa has told me wonderful things about you," he said, opening his briefcase on my dining table. "We are going to make this quick and simple so you don't get complicated." Quick and simple. Those words should have alarmed me. He put a stack of documents in front of me. "This is just a temporary authorization so that your son can start construction on the property. You maintain full ownership. Don't worry, it's just paperwork." "And why can't he build without this paper?" I asked, trying to understand. Barry let out a condescending laugh. "Oh, madam, the bank won't lend money for construction if the person applying for the loan doesn't have some document that demonstrates their right to build on the property. It's simple bureaucracy." Nothing to worry about. Robert was sitting next to me, nodding with every word the notary said. "It's normal, Mum. All banks ask for the same thing." I took the pen Barry handed me. It weighed like it was made of lead. I looked at my son, searching his eyes for some sign of doubt, of warning. I only saw excitement, hope, that light that had been extinguished for years. I signed. 1, 2, 3 pages, my full name on each dotted line. "Perfect," Barry said, quickly putting away the papers. "In 2 weeks we should have the loan approved and we could start construction." They kept their word. 2 weeks later, the machinery arrived at my property. The noise of the tractors, the dust, the constant movement of workers transformed that quiet space into an organized chaos. Robert took me to see the progress every week. "Look, Mum, here's where the kitchen will be. Huge, with a central island. And back there is your room, with big windows to let in the sun." By September, the walls were already up. It was a beautiful house, I couldn't deny it. 2 stories, modern facade, wide windows. Vanessa had designed every detail. One Sunday, while we were having lunch at my house, Vanessa dropped the bomb. "Mrs. Helen, we have wonderful news," she said, stroking her 5-month belly. "The baby is a boy. He's going to be named Matthew, after my grandfather." Matthew. They didn't even consider naming him George after his paternal grandfather. "What a nice name," I lied, feeling a pang in my chest. "And well, with the baby coming, we need to speed up construction," Vanessa continued. "The problems are that the budget is running a little higher than expected. Materials went up. You know how the situation is." Robert cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "Mum, we were thinking. Well, the property is yours. The house is going to be for everyone. Could you help us with a part of the construction?" There it was. The real reason for all this sudden reconciliation. "How much do you need?" I asked, although I already knew the answer would be high. $850,000, Vanessa said without blinking. "I know it sounds like a lot, but it's an investment. It's for the house where your grandson is going to grow up." $850,000. The savings I had from my retirement, from George's life insurance, from years of work. My financial cushion, my security. "It's all I have," I whispered. "We know, Mum." Robert took my hand. "And that's why it means so much to us. It would be your gift to your grandson. Imagine, when Matthew grows up, you can tell him that his grandmother helped build his house," Vanessa added. Besides, Mrs. Helen, when the construction is finished, the house will be worth at least $3 million. Your investment will triple. The following days were torture. Mr. Williamson called me, worried. Helen, I don't like this. Let me check the papers you signed. But it was too late. I had already said yes. I had already promised the money. And above all, I had already seen the excitement in Robert's eyes. I transferred the $850,000 to the construction company's account. I watched my bank balance drop suddenly, leaving me with barely $50,000 in reserve. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed staring at the ceiling, hugging George's pocket watch. Forgive me, my love, I whispered into the air. Forgive me for spending your savings like this. But it's for our grandson. It's for the family. In December, Matthew was born. When Robert called me from the hospital, I was ready, with the diaper bag I had bought, the little gifts I had knitted with my own hands. Mum, it's better if you don't come today. Vanessa is very tired and needs rest. We'll let you know tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into 3 days. When they finally let me go to the hospital, Matthew was already 4 days old. The room was full of flowers, balloons, visitors, Vanessa's parents, her sisters, her friends. I arrived with my humble gift and my broken heart. Vanessa allowed me to hold Matthew for exactly 5 minutes. Be careful with his head, madam. Not like that. Let me show you how it's done. That beautiful baby, with Robert's eyes and George's nose, was my grandson. But it felt like he was Vanessa's private property. February arrived with the house almost finished. It looked spectacular. But when I went to see my supposed bedroom, my heart sank to the floor. It wasn't a bedroom, it was a staff quarter, small, dark, with a tiny bathroom and a window that overlooked the backyard. It's temporary, Mum, Robert explained, until we finish arranging everything. A lie. It was all a lie, and I had been too stupid to see it coming. March of the following year arrived with the promise of moving in. The house was ready, impressive, with its 2 gleaming stories and its perfectly designed yard. Vanessa organized a small housewarming. She invited her friends, her parents, co-workers. I helped in the kitchen, preparing snacks that no one thanked me for. Mrs. Helen, the shrimp goes on the patio table, not here, Vanessa corrected me, moving the tray I had carefully arranged. During the tour, Vanessa gave her guests. I heard every word from the kitchen. This is the master bedroom, with a walk-in closet and full bathroom. Here is Matthew's room, designed with neutral colors to stimulate his development. And this is Robert's study. No one asked where my room was. No one seemed to notice my absence on the tour. When everyone left, Vanessa took me to the back of the house. Here is your space, Mrs. Helen. I know it's small, but it's cozy. Cozy. The room was barely 10 by 10 feet. The twin bed barely fit next to the old dresser they had brought from my house. The bathroom was so narrow you had to enter sideways. The window faced the neighbor's wall. It's temporary, I repeated Robert's words like a mantra. It's temporary, but it wasn't. The move was chaotic. My furniture was distributed throughout the new construction. My sofa ended up in the main living room, my dining table in the guest area, my paintings on the walls Vanessa chose. All my things scattered everywhere, but nothing truly mine. Oh, Mrs. Helen, this armchair is very worn out. We better put it in storage, Vanessa said, pointing to the armchair where George read the newspaper every morning. These plates are chipped. We should throw them away. The plates from my parents' wedding, with their golden edges and their small imperfections. This painting doesn't go with the modern decor. The painting Robert made for me in elementary school, his first self-portrait. My entire life being discarded, piece by piece. The rules arrived in the second week. Vanessa called them cohabitation agreements, and wrote them on a sheet of paper that she taped to the refrigerator with a magnet. Kitchen hours, 7 to 8 a.m. and 6 to 7 p.m. Outside these hours, please do not use the stove. Do not receive visitors without giving 24 hours notice. Laundry days, Tuesday and Friday. Maximum 2 loads. Prohibited from entering Matthew's bedroom without authorization. I read that list, feeling the humiliation burn my cheeks. Prohibited from entering my own grandson's room. They're just to organize ourselves better, Robert explained when I complained. Living together requires boundaries, Mum. Don't take it personally. How could I not take it personally when they were treating me like an employee on my own property? The humiliations became daily. One Tuesday, Vanessa entered my room without knocking. "Mrs. Helen, did you use my shampoo?" she asked with her arms crossed. "No, I have my own." "Well, because yesterday it was full and today it's half empty, and since you're the only one who uses the upstairs bathroom when you clean." "I'm telling you I didn't use it, Vanessa." All right. I'm just saying that if you need something, you can ask for it. You don't have to take things that aren't yours." She was accusing me of being a thief, on my own property, with my own money invested in every square inch of that house. Even worse was the day I wanted to hold Matthew. The baby was crying in his stroller in the living room. I was nearby folding clothes. I picked him up, rocking gently as I had rocked Robert 34 years ago. Vanessa ran down the stairs. "What are you doing, Mrs. Helen?" "Nothing. I was just calming him down. I have told you 1,000 times not to hold him without washing your hands first. The germs, madam." "The germs." She snatched Matthew from my arms as if I were a threat, as if I were a dangerous stranger. "I washed my hands." I lied, feeling the tears wanting to come out. "No, you didn't. I saw you. You were folding clothes and then you touched him. Please, be more careful with my son." My grandson. Not her son. My grandson. May brought another surprise. We were having dinner, one of the few moments where the three of us shared the table. "Mrs. Helen, we need to talk about something important," Vanessa began, delicately wiping her mouth. Robert stopped eating, staring at his plate. "The truth is that the household expenses are very high. The water, the electricity, the gas, the property tax. Everything went up a lot." "I can help," I offered. "I have my pension." "Yes, well, that's precisely what we wanted to talk about. We believe it would be fair for you to contribute a proportional part of the expenses." "Of course, no problem." "How much?" Vanessa slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a detailed list. Electricity, water, gas, internet, property tax, maintenance. At the end, in red numbers, suggested monthly contribution, $4,500, $4,500. Almost half of my pension. "That's a lot," I stammered. "Mrs. Helen, you live here. You use the services. You can't expect everything to be free." "But I put $850,000 into the construction and the property is mine." Vanessa's face hardened. "The property is yours, but the house is ours. We paid for the construction, the finishes, everything. Your contribution was voluntary. No one forced you." I looked at Robert, hoping he would defend me, that he would say something. "Mum, it's fair. We all have to contribute." That night, alone in my little room in the back, I did the math. With the monthly payment, I would have barely $3,000 left for food, medicine, transportation, everything, and I still had to pay for health insurance. I sat on the edge of the bed and took George's watch from the nightstand drawer. "They're stealing from me, my love," I whispered to the watch. "They're stealing my money, my dignity, my grandson, and I don't know how to stop them." But then I remembered something. I remembered that months ago, When I started feeling that something wasn't right, I had called Mr. Williamson. He had insisted on checking the papers. "Helen, bring me everything you signed. Everything." And I had done it. I had brought him copies of every document. I got up from the bed and searched in the back of my closet for the shoebox where I kept important papers. There was Mr. Williamson's business card and a note he himself had written. "Helen, when you're ready to act, call me." I put the card in my pocket. It wasn't time yet. I needed more evidence, more proof, because something told me the worst was still to come. And I was right. The following months were the darkest of my life. June, July, August passed in a fog of daily humiliations that made me question if I still existed or if I had become a ghost on my own property. The mornings were the worst. I would wake up at 5:30 a.m. before everyone to be able to use the kitchen without disturbing them. I prepared my coffee in silence, being careful not to let the coffee maker make noise. Once I dropped a spoon into the sink and Vanessa came down furious. "Mrs. Helen, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Matthew just fell asleep 2 hours ago. Can you be more careful?" I apologized as if I had committed a crime, as if making noise in my own kitchen was an unforgivable sin. Worse was the day I wanted to invite Laura over for lunch. I told Vanessa a week in advance, as the rules demanded. "Mrs. Helen, the house is busy that day. Some of Robert's clients are coming to close a deal. You cannot receive visitors." "But I told you a week ago." "And I'm telling you 2 weeks in advance that that day is busy. Business visits have priority." I had to cancel on Laura. "I can't host you here. Should we meet at your house?" I wrote to her, feeling the shame burn to my bones. "Helen, what is going on?" she asked me on the phone. "That house is on your property. How can you not receive visitors?" I didn't know what to answer, because explaining it out loud would make everything too real, too pathetic. In July, my sister Connie came from Florida to visit me. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. When she arrived and saw where I had been relegated, her eyes filled with tears. "Helen, this is a staff quarter. What did they do to you?" "It's temporary." I lied again. That lie, I didn't even believe myself anymore. During her 3-day visit, Connie saw everything. She saw how Vanessa spoke to me in that condescending tone. She saw how Robert ignored me when his wife was present. She saw how they forbade me to hold Matthew without supervision. "That baby is your grandson, Helen. You have rights." "I don't want to cause trouble." "Matthew is Vanessa's son. She decides." "Matthew is your son's son, and you are his grandmother. React, sister. They are trampling on you." But I remained paralyzed. I still believed that if I behaved well, if I obeyed all the absurd rules, eventually things would get better. August brought the final straw. Vanessa found a lipstick stain on a towel. "Mrs. Helen, did you use the white towels from the guest bathroom?" "No, I have my own." "Well, someone used them and stained them. And since you clean the bathrooms—" "It wasn't me, Vanessa." "Well, someone has to replace those towels. They cost $800 a set. I'm going to deduct $200 from your next payment." "My next payment?" As if I were an employee. As if the $4,500 I was already paying monthly wasn't enough humiliation. That night, I called Mr. Williamson from my room, with the door closed and speaking in whispers. "Mr. Williamson, I need to know exactly what I signed. I need to know if I can do anything." "Helen, I've been waiting for you. Come to the office tomorrow. I have information you need to know." The next day, I made up that I had a doctor's appointment. I took the subway to downtown. I walked the 3 blocks to the old building where Mr. Williamson had his office for 40 years. He greeted me with a paternal hug. He offered me coffee, made me sit down. Then he took out a thick folder. Helen, what I'm about to tell you, you're not going to like, but you need to know it. My heart started beating faster. The papers you signed were not a temporary authorization. It was a transfer of construction rights. Basically, you gave Robert and Vanessa the legal right to build on your property and register the construction in their name. The world started spinning. What does that mean? It means that the house, even though it's on your property, is legally theirs. If they wanted to, they could sue you for land use and force you to pay rent to live there. But Barry said it was temporary, that I would maintain ownership. Barry lied. Or worse, he knew exactly what he was doing. I have investigated that notary. He has several lawsuits for real estate fraud. He's a close friend of Vanessa's. They work together regularly. Tears began to fall uncontrollably. Mr. Williamson, I invested $850,000. It's all I had. I know, Helen, and there's more. I investigated Vanessa's finances. She has $420,000 in credit card debt. She is being sued by 2 banks. That woman is desperate for money. Everything began to make sense. The convenient pregnancy, Robert's sudden interest, the quick construction, the constant pressure. What can I do? I asked, wiping my tears. We can sue. We have grounds for fraud, to recover your investment, to fight for the property. But I need you to bring me more evidence, recordings, messages, documents, everything you can get. I left that office a changed person. I was no longer the naive grandmother who believed in her son's good intentions. I was a woman who had just realized she had been scammed by her own family. I bought a small recorder at a downtown stall, $400 that hurt to spend, but that I knew was an investment. On the way back home, or what was left of it, Vanessa was waiting for me at the door. Where were you, Mrs. Helen? I looked for you all afternoon. Matthew was crying, and I needed you to watch him while I worked. I had a doctor's appointment, I told you. Well, next time leave your phone on. I called you like 10 times. I checked my phone. There were no missed calls. That night, in my room, I turned on the recorder and hid it in the pocket of my robe. From that moment on, every conversation, every humiliation, every absurd order was recorded. September arrived with the rent collection. Vanessa called me to the living room. Mrs. Helen, the $4,500 monthly is no longer enough. The utilities went up. Starting this month, it will be $6,000. $6,000, more than half of my pension. I can't pay that, Vanessa. Then we'll have to look for other alternatives. Maybe it's time for you to look for a more affordable place to live. The recorder in my pocket captured every word, every veiled threat, every attempt to get me off my own property. And I kept gathering evidence. I continued to be the obedient old woman who didn't cause trouble, because now I had a plan. Now I knew exactly what I had to do. I was just waiting for the perfect moment to act. October found me transformed. On the outside, I was still the same submissive Helen, the one who asked permission to use her own kitchen, the one who bowed her head to every order from Vanessa. On the inside, I was a woman on a mission, a woman who documented every injustice with the precision of a detective. The recorder became my best ally. I carried it in the pocket of my robe, in my grocery bag, hidden among the cleaning rags when I cleaned. Every conversation was recorded, every humiliation, every threat, every lie. One afternoon, while pretending to clean Robert's study, I found something that chilled my blood. On his desk, half hidden under some papers, there was a document from the bank. A statement for a mortgage loan. I took out my phone with trembling hands and took a picture. The loan was for $1,200,000. The collateral, my property. The guarantee, the construction registered in Robert and Vanessa's name. They had used my property to go into debt, without my permission, without my knowledge. That night, I met again with Mr. Williamson. I brought him the photographs, the recordings, everything. Helen, this is fraud, major fraud. They used your property as collateral without your consent. And the loan, what was it for? Mr. Williamson investigated. 2 days later, he called me with the answer. The money was used to pay Vanessa's debts and to buy the new SUV they have. It wasn't for the construction. The construction was paid for by you with your $850,000. I sat on a park bench, where no one could hear my conversation. The world spun around me as I processed the information. I also discovered something else, Mr. Williamson continued. Barry, the notary, was disbarred from the Notary College 3 months ago. The documents you signed do not have full legal validity. There are irregularities. What does that mean? It means we can fight, and we can win, but we need to act fast, before they try to legalize something else or sell the property. Sell? Can they do that? With the fraudulent documents they have, they could try. I've seen cases like this. That's why we need to move now, Helen. I spent the next few weeks preparing. Mr. Williamson drafted the lawsuit, real estate fraud, illegal use of property as collateral, falsification of documents, dispossession. We gathered all the evidence, the recordings, the photographs, the bank statements, testimonies from Laura and Connie. We also investigated Vanessa more thoroughly. Mr. Williamson hired a private investigator. What we discovered was devastating. Vanessa had 2 maxed-out credit cards. She owed $420,000, as Mr. Williamson had said, but she also had a lawsuit for fraud from a previous company where she worked. She had falsified invoices. She had been fired and sued. Robert knew none of this. My son had married a professional liar and didn't even know it. One night in November, while we were having dinner, Vanessa dropped another bomb. Mrs. Helen, Robert and I have been thinking, this cohabitation situation is not working out. Robert looked at his plate, unable to look me in the eyes. We think it would be better for everyone if you looked for your own place, a small apartment, close by. That way we would maintain our independence, but we would still be in contact. The recorder in my pocket captured every word. But this is my property, I said softly without getting upset. Yes, but the house is ours, and living all together is causing friction. You deserve your peace of mind, Mrs. Helen. We can help you with the rent for a place for the first few months while you settle in. They wanted me out. They wanted my property, my investment, my legacy, and they wanted to toss me out like an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful. Let me think about it, I said, getting up from the table. In my room, I called Mr. Williamson. It's time. Prepare everything. I want to act next week. Are you sure, Helen? Completely sure. The following days were the most difficult of my life, continuing to feign normalcy, knowing what was coming, watching Robert play with Matthew, knowing that in days our relationship would change forever. Part of me still loved my son. I still wanted to believe that he was Vanessa's victim, that she had manipulated him. But another part, the part that had awakened after months of humiliation, knew the truth. Robert had chosen. He had chosen money, comfort, the easy life, and he had sacrificed me in the process. On the Tuesday of the following week, Robert called me. It was midday. I was at the market buying vegetables. Mum, I'm calling you quickly because I'm on my way out. We moved to Austin, Texas last week. Vanessa got an incredible job there. And well, we forgot to tell you. You know how these things are. Everything happened so fast. The world stopped. The vegetable lady was charging me, but I wasn't listening to her. I only heard those words. We forgot to tell you. They had moved. With my grandson. With my $850,000 invested. With my property mortgaged. And they had forgotten to tell me. It's all right, son, I replied with a calm I didn't feel. Good luck with that new chapter. I hung up. I left the vegetables there, unsold. I walked straight home, went up to my room and closed the door. I opened my laptop. I had bought it at a cyber cafe nearby, paying in cash so Vanessa wouldn't know I had one. I opened my email. I drafted the message to Mr. Williamson. Chiddiam's son. It's time. Let's start everything today. I'm attaching the last recordings. I pressed send. Then I did something else. I went into the family WhatsApp group, the one with my sisters-in-law, my cousins, my sister. I wrote a long, detailed message. I told them everything. The scam, the fraud, the humiliations, Vanessa's debts, the illegal loan. I attached photos of the documents. I pressed send and turned off the phone. I sat on the edge of my bed. I hugged George's watch. That's it, my love. I'm tired of being the fool. I'm tired of letting them trample on me. Now it's my turn. In 72 hours, Robert would receive a court summons, an order to freeze accounts, a lawsuit for fraud that could send him to jail. And when that happened, he would finally understand that forgetting about your mother has consequences. Because I hadn't forgotten anything. And now, finally, it was time to collect. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the phone turned off on the nightstand. Outside, the city continued its normal rhythm. Dogs barked, cars passed, life went on. But inside me, something had changed forever. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I turned on the phone. Messages immediately started arriving. Laura, Connie, my sisters-in-law, my cousins, everyone had seen what I shared in the family group. Helen, I can't believe what they did to you. Cousin, count on us for whatever you need. That jerk Robert is going to pay for this. But the message that broke my heart was from Patricia, my sister-in-law. Helen, George would be proud of you. It was about time you defended yourself. We love you. I took a shower, got dressed, and made coffee. For the first time in months, I used the kitchen without fear, without watching the clock. Anyway, there was no one left to bother. The house was empty. Robert and Vanessa had left without saying goodbye, like thieves in the night. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Williamson arrived at the house. He was accompanied by another, younger lawyer, his partner, Mr. Peterson. Helen, good morning. Ready for this? More ready than I have been in my life. We sat at the dining table, that table I had bought with my first paycheck as a secretary 35 years ago. Mr. Williamson spread documents on the surface. The lawsuit has already been filed. The judge admitted it this morning because it is a case of blatant fraud. In 48 hours, they will receive the notification. And the lien? It's already in process. We froze the account where the mortgage loan is. We also alerted the bank so they can't make any moves with the property. Mr. Peterson added. In addition, we contacted the district attorney's office about the fraudulent notary. Barry already has an investigation order. If Vanessa and he worked together on this, she will also face charges. And Robert? I asked, feeling my voice break. Mr. Williamson sighed. Robert is an accomplice, Helen. He signed documents, used your property, benefited from the fraud. Legally, he is just as guilty as Vanessa. I nodded, swallowing my tears. My son, my only son, the boy who had grown up in this house, who had played in this yard, who had promised to take care of me forever. There's something else you need to know, Mr. Williamson continued. We investigated the job offer in Austin, Texas. It doesn't exist. Vanessa doesn't have a job there. They moved to run away, to get away before you could react. So what are they going to do? Probably try to sell the house quickly before we catch up with them legally. That's why we acted so fast. The property is already frozen. They cannot sell it without facing criminal consequences. I spent the rest of the day in a strange state of alert. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. But Robert didn't call. Neither did Vanessa. Absolute silence. On Thursday afternoon, 48 hours after sending my email, I received the call I had been waiting for. Robert. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Mom? His voice sounded desperate, broken. Mum, what did you do? Good morning, Robert. Don't give me that. We just got a summons from the court. Are you suing us? You? My own mother? Yes. I'm suing you and your wife for fraud, dispossession, and illegal use of my property. Are you crazy? We did everything in good faith. You agreed to everything. I agreed under false pretenses. I signed documents that I was told were temporary, when they were actually a transfer of rights. You used my property as collateral for a loan without my authorization. And you spent my $850,000 on paying Vanessa's debts and buying an SUV. Silence on the other end. Mum, I didn't know. You didn't know what, Robert? You didn't know that your wife has $420,000 in debt. You didn't know that she was fired from her previous job for fraud. Or you didn't know that you had me living in a staff quarter after investing all my savings in your house. Mum, please, we can fix this. It doesn't have to go to court. You should have thought about that before moving without telling me, before forgetting you had a mother. It was a last-minute decision. Vanessa got a job and… Vanessa doesn't have a job in Austin, Robert. We already investigated. You left to run away, because you knew what you had done. Another silence. Longer. Heavier. What do you want, Mum? Money? The house? Tell me what you want, and we'll fix it. I want justice. I want you to face the consequences of your actions, and I want to regain my dignity. You're going to ruin us. The lien left us with no money. We have a baby, Mum. Your grandson. My grandson, who you wouldn't let me hold. My grandson, who I forgot how to be a grandmother to when you forgot to tell me you were moving. Please. Robert's voice broke. Mum, please. I'm your son. Those words hurt more than I expected. I closed my eyes. I squeezed George's watch that I was carrying in my pocket. That's exactly why it hurts so much, Robert. Because you are my son, and yet you betrayed me. Mum. You have a preliminary hearing on Monday. I suggest you get a good lawyer. Mr. Williamson will not be merciful. Wait. Don't hang up. I hung up. I turned off the phone. I sat on the living room sofa, the same one where Robert used to fall asleep watching cartoons. The tears I had been holding back finally came out. I cried for the son I had lost, for the family I would never have, for the years of humiliation I had endured, believing that love could overcome anything. But I also cried with relief, because for the first time in years I had defended my dignity. I had said enough, and although it hurt, although it broke my heart, I knew I had done the right thing. Laura came over that night with food. She sat with me in silence, holding my hand. Do you think I did the right thing? I asked her. You did what you should have done years ago, Helen. No one has the right to treat you like that, not even your own son. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Without a hidden recorder, without fear of making noise, without absurd rules taped to the refrigerator. Because finally, after so long, I felt like the owner of my own life again. The weekend was an agony of silence. Robert did not call again. The phone remained silent, mocking me with its turned-off screen, but I knew that the calm was only the prelude to the storm. On Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Williamson picked me up to go to the preliminary hearing. I put on my best dress, the brown one George had given me on our last anniversary. I put my hair up in an elegant bun. I wanted to look dignified, strong, not like the broken old woman they had tried to make me. The courthouse was downtown. Old building, echoing hallways, people waiting on worn wooden benches. Mr. Williamson led me to a small room. "Breathe, Helen. You'll see that everything will be fine." At 9 o'clock sharp, we entered the courtroom. And there they were. Robert in a suit, with dark circles, haggard. Vanessa in a discreet black dress, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She tried to look vulnerable, like a victim, but I already knew her game. We looked at each other. Robert immediately looked down. Vanessa held my gaze with pure, undisguised hatred. The judge entered and the hearing began. He read the charges: real estate fraud, falsification of documents, illegal use of property as mortgage collateral, dispossession. Their lawyer, a young guy in a cheap suit, tried to argue that everything had been a misunderstanding, that I had given my consent, that it was a family dispute that did not warrant legal action. Mr. Williamson destroyed every argument with surgical precision. He presented the recordings where Vanessa threatened to kick me out. He presented the documents of the fraudulent loan. He presented the report on Barry, the corrupt notary. "Your Honor," Mr. Williamson said firmly, "my client is a 68-year-old woman who was systematically dispossessed of her legacy by her own son and daughter-in-law. She invested $850,000 of her only savings, believing she was building a family home. Instead, she was relegated to a staff quarter, forced to pay rent on her own property, and finally abandoned without even a goodbye." Robert wiped his tears. Vanessa remained rigid, calculating. The judge reviewed the documents with a serious expression. Then he looked at Robert. "Mr. Smith, is it true that you used your mother's property as collateral for a mortgage loan without her explicit consent?" Robert stammered. I thought she knew." "Yes or no, Mr. Smith?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And is it true that you moved your residence without informing the owner of the property where your home was built?" "Yes, but—" "Enough." The judge closed the folder with a dry thud. "I declare the lawsuit admissible. The lien on the property and bank accounts is maintained. A criminal investigation is ordered against Ms. Vanessa Rogers for her relationship with the notary Barry Hill. Next hearing in 30 days for the presentation of additional evidence." The gavel fell. Vanessa abruptly stood up. "This is unfair. That manipulative old woman tricked us. She signed everything voluntarily." "Order!" the judge shouted. "Ms. Rogers, one more outburst, and I will hold you in contempt. Be dismissed." We left the room. In the hallway, Robert caught up with me. He looked devastated, as if he had aged 10 years in a week. "Mom, please, let's talk. This doesn't have to destroy our family." "Robert, you destroyed our family when you decided that I didn't matter." "It was Vanessa. She convinced me of everything. I didn't know about her debts, her legal problems. She lied to me." Vanessa approached like a caged beast. "Now you blame me. You agreed to everything. You signed the papers. Because you told me it was normal, that all families did it that way." I watched them fight and felt a strange mix of sadness and satisfaction. The perfect mask of their marriage was falling apart. Mr. Williamson took my arm. "Let's go, Helen. You don't have to witness this." But Vanessa wasn't finished. She stood in front of me with her arms crossed. "This isn't over, madam. We're going to fight. We're going to prove that you gave us everything voluntarily. And when we lose everything because of you, you will never see your grandson again." That threat hit me in the chest. Matthew, my innocent grandson, in the middle of all this mess. "Matthew is the only thing that hurts me in all of this," I replied with a trembling but firm voice. "Because he is not to blame for having a fraudulent mother and a cowardly father. But I'm not going to let you use that child as a shield to get away with it. You are a bitter woman who can't stand to see her son happy." "I would be happy to see my son happy. But you are not making him happy, Vanessa. You are just dragging him down into your pit of lies and debts." Robert stepped between us. "Enough, both of you." I looked him in the eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with the pure love of a son. "Robert, you still have time to do the right thing. You can testify in my favor, admit what you did, try to repair the damage, or you can stay with her and sink completely." "She is my wife, Mom. She is the mother of my son. And I'm your mother, the woman who carried you, raised you, gave you everything. But it seems that means nothing to you anymore." I turned around and walked toward the exit with Mr. Williamson. Behind me, I heard Vanessa's screams, Robert's crying, the chaos of their world crumbling. Outside, the sun shone with an almost offensive intensity, as if the universe ignored that my heart was broken into pieces. "You did very well, Helen," Mr. Williamson told me. "I know it hurts, but you're on the right side. And what if I lose my son forever? If you lose him to defend your dignity, then he was never truly yours." Those words accompanied me all the way home. The house was empty, yes, but now it was also free. Free of absurd rules, of scornful looks, of daily humiliations. That afternoon, alone in my room, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Matthew playing with blocks, and a text. "Your grandson, who you will never see again. I hope your revenge was worth it. Vanessa." I cried, hugging George's watch. I cried for Matthew, for Robert, for everything that could have been and never would be. But I did not regret it. Because sometimes true love means letting go, and sometimes it means fighting, even if it hurts to the core. The following weeks were an emotional roller coaster. Every morning I woke up expecting to feel regret for what I had done. But it never came. Instead, I felt something I had forgotten. Peace. Mr. Williamson kept me informed of every advance. The investigation into Barry revealed that he had falsified documents for at least another 12 families. Vanessa had been his accomplice in 3 of those cases, receiving commissions for referring clients. She was a professional scam artist, and Robert had just been her most convenient victim. "Helen, there's news," Mr. Williamson told me one late November afternoon. "Robert wants to talk to you. No lawyers, no Vanessa, just the 2 of you." My first instinct was to refuse, but something in me, that part that was still a mother, needed to hear him. We met at a neutral coffee shop, one of those impersonal places, full of people who didn't know us. Robert arrived 15 minutes late. He had several days of beard growth, deep, dark circles. His suit was wrinkled. He looked destroyed. He sat across from me without saying anything for a long minute. He just looked at me as if he were seeing a ghost. "Mom, he started, but his voice broke. "Speak, Robert. That's why you came. You were right. About everything. Vanessa lied to me from the beginning. The debts, the previous frauds, her relationship with Barry. None of what she told me was true." And when did you realize? 2 weeks ago. I found emails between her and Barry. They planned everything before they even met me. She investigated me, Mum. She knew about the property you inherited from Dad before I even mentioned it to her. She sought me out on purpose. Those words should have given me satisfaction, but I only felt sadness. Sadness for my son. So naive, so manipulated. And Matthew? Robert's eyes filled with tears. Vanessa is using him. She is threatening not to let me see him if I testify in your favor. She says she will say I am a negligent father, that I let you mistreat our son. Me? Mistreat Matthew? I could barely hold him. I know, Mum, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for how we treated you. I'm sorry for stealing from you. I'm sorry for not defending you when she humiliated you. I'm sorry. His voice was lost in sobs. Seeing my son cry broke my heart, but I wasn't going to give in. Not yet. Robert, apologies are fine, but I need more than words. I know. That's why I came. I'm going to testify. I'm going to tell the truth about everything, about how Vanessa planned everything, about the fraud, about how we treated you. I'm going to face the consequences. And Vanessa? I already filed for divorce. Mr. Williamson referred me to a lawyer. I'm going to fight for custody of Matthew, although I know it will be difficult. I reached my hand across the table and touched his. It was cold, trembling. Son, you did terrible things. You hurt me in ways I didn't know were possible. But you are still my son, and if you are willing to do the right thing, to face the truth, then we can try to rebuild something. Will you forgive me? Forgiving you will take time. Trusting you again will take even longer. But I'm willing to try. As long as you understand one thing, I will never again allow myself to be treated the way I was treated. I will never again be the convenient mother who accepts crumbs of attention. I don't want you to be that, Mum. I want you to be my mother, the strong woman who raised me, the one who taught me that doing the right thing sometimes hurts, but it's necessary. 2 weeks later was the second hearing. This time Robert sat on my side. His testimony was devastating. He told everything. How Vanessa manipulated him, how they planned to use the property, how they relegated me to the staff quarter, how they charged me rent. Vanessa looked at him with pure hatred as he spoke. Her lawyer tried to discredit him, but the evidence was overwhelming. The emails between her and Barry, the falsified documents, the testimonies from neighbors who had seen how they treated me. The judge listened to everything with an increasingly severe expression. When the declarations ended, he took just 5 minutes to deliberate. I have seen many cases in my career, but this one is particularly painful, he began. A mother dispossessed by her own family, an elderly woman treated as an inconvenience on her own property. Vanessa tried to interrupt, but her lawyer stopped her. Therefore, he ruled in favor of the plaintiff, Mrs. Helen Smith, the immediate return of the amount of $850,000 is ordered, plus interest and damages. The mortgage loan is annulled after being obtained through fraud. The ownership of the construction is reverted to Mrs. Smith. Vanessa jumped up, screaming, "We don't have that money, it's impossible." Then the construction will be seized and auctioned. The proceeds of the sale will cover the debt. Furthermore, Ms. Rogers will face criminal charges for fraud. And Mr. Smith, Robert tensed. Mr. Smith has cooperated fully with justice and has shown genuine remorse. Therefore, he will not face criminal charges, but he must pay a fine of $100,000 for his involvement. The gavel fell. I had won. Outside the courthouse, Robert hugged me. Thank you for giving me a chance, Mum. Now you have to prove you deserve it. And he did. The following months were slow reconstruction. Robert moved to a small apartment. He fought for and won joint custody of Matthew. Every Sunday he came to visit me with my grandson. The house built on my property was auctioned off. A young couple bought it for $2,800,000. After paying debts and legal costs, I was left with $1,200,000. With that money, I sold the entire property for $3,800,000. The total gave me $5 million. I bought a small but bright apartment in Queens. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with plants, a view of a park. My space. Only mine. I donated $500,000 to a foundation that helps elderly women who are victims of family abuse, because I was lucky to know Mr. Williamson, to have resources to fight. Many do not. The rest I invested wisely, this time with a real financial advisor. One Sunday afternoon, Robert came with Matthew. The boy, now 2 years old, ran to my arms shouting, "Grandma!" I melted. 6 months after the court resolution, my life was completely different. I woke up one morning in May in my apartment. The sun was streaming through the white curtains that I myself had chosen, and for the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten. Joy. The apartment in Queens had become my sanctuary. Small, yes, but every corner was mine. The ivory-coloured walls I painted with Laura's help, the geranium pots on the balcony, the photo of George in the living room next to a new one of Matthew. Here no one told me what time I could cook or when to wash my clothes. Robert kept his word. Every Sunday he arrived with Matthew, and little by little we rebuilt something resembling a relationship. It wasn't the same as before. It probably never would be, but it was honest. There were no more masks, no convenient lies. "Mom, I brought your favourite dessert," he told me that Sunday, entering with a box of pastries from the corner bakery, that traditional bakery we used to visit when he was a kid. Matthew ran straight into my arms. "Grandma, look at my dinosaur." I knelt down to his level, forgetting for a moment about my knees that were no longer the same, and admired his toy with genuine interest. "It's beautiful, my love. What's its name?" "Its name is George, like my grandpa who is in heaven." My eyes filled with tears. I looked at Robert, who smiled sadly. "I've been telling him about Dad," he explained, "about what he was like, what he did, how much he loved you. I want Matthew to know where he comes from." While Matthew played in the living room, Robert and I sat on the balcony with coffee. "How are things with Vanessa?" I asked, not out of morbid curiosity, but because her situation affected my grandson. "The divorce was finalized last week. She has partial custody, but with supervision. The judge didn't trust leaving her alone with Matthew after everything that came out in the trial." "And how is she?" Robert sighed. "I don't really know. She moved in with her parents in New Jersey. She's facing fraud charges along with Barry. Her lawyer says she'll probably get a suspended sentence for being a first-time mother, but she'll have a record." "Do you hate her?" My son thought for a long time. "No, I think I pity her. She's a person who never learned to live without deceiving. But she's not my problem anymore. My priority now is Matthew and rebuilding my life." "And with me? How do you feel about me?" "Ashamed. Every day. Every time I see this apartment and think it could have been bigger, more comfortable, if we hadn't stolen from you. Every time I see Matthew and think about how they forbade you to hold him." "Robert." "No. Let me finish. I was a terrible son. I chose a woman I had just met over the woman who gave me life. I allowed them to treat you like dirt. And the worst part is that a part of me knew it was wrong, but it was easier to look the other way. And what did you learn from all this? That silence makes you an accomplice, that true love requires courage, and that you, Mum, are the strongest person I know. I took his hand. I'm not strong, son. I just got tired of being weak. That Sunday, after they left, I stayed on the balcony watching the sunset. The city stretched out before me. Millions of lives, millions of stories, and I was just one more. An older woman who almost lost everything, but who found the strength to regain her dignity. My phone vibrated. It was Patricia, my sister-in-law. Helen, did you see today's newspaper? No, why? There's an article about Barry and other corrupt notaries. They mention your case. They say that thanks to your complaint, 5 other families were also encouraged to sue. I looked up the article online. There was my story, without my full name, but recognizable. And at the end, the journalist wrote, "This woman proved that it is never too late to defend what is yours. Her courage opened the way for other victims to find justice." I closed the phone and looked at George's photo. I did it, my love. It cost me, it hurt me, it almost destroyed me, but I did it. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected call. It was from the foundation I had donated money to. "Mrs. Smith, we would like you to come and give a talk. There are many women going through similar situations to yours. Your story could help them." At first, I hesitated. I didn't consider myself an example of anything. But then, I thought of all the Helens in the world, the ones who were in that staff quarter, swallowing humiliations, believing that love means enduring everything. I accepted. The talk was at a community center in Brooklyn. There were 40 women, most over 50, all with stories of family abuse, dispossession, manipulation. When I finished telling my story, many were crying. A woman about 70 years old approached afterward. "I've been living with my daughter and son-in-law for 10 years. They treat me like a servant, but I thought that's how it had to be, that I had no choice." "There is always a choice," I told her, taking her hands. "Maybe it's not easy, maybe it hurts, but your dignity is worth more than the comfort of staying silent." Those words became my new purpose. I gave 3 more talks that year. I helped 2 women contact lawyers. I started a small support group that met every month in my apartment. 1 year after the trial, on my 69th birthday, Robert arrived early with Matthew. "Happy birthday, Mum. I have something for you." He handed me a small box. Inside was a watch. Not just any watch. It was George's pocket watch, but now restored, shiny, working perfectly. "I know how much it means to you. I took it in for repair. Now it works like new." I held it in my hands, listening to its constant ticking, and I thought about all the road travelled, the losses, the battles, the small and great victories. "Thank you, son." "No, Mum. Thank you for not giving up, for teaching me that it's never too late to do the right thing." That night, alone again, but no longer lonely, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea. The city shone below, full of possibilities. I thought about the Helen of 2 years ago, the one who lived in a staff quarter asking permission to exist. And I thought about the Helen of now, the one who had her own space, her own voice, her own life. 18 months after the trial, I received a certified letter. The envelope was thick, official, with the logo of the Superior Court of Justice. For a moment, the old fear returned. Vanessa had appealed. Was there a new problem? I opened the envelope with trembling hands. But it wasn't what I feared. It was a notification that the case had been definitively closed. Vanessa had been sentenced to 2 years of suspended prison and 5 years of probation for fraud. Barry had received 4 actual years. Everything was officially over. I called Mr. Williamson immediately. "You saw it, didn't you?" he said with a satisfied voice. "Complete justice, Helen. It doesn't always happen this way." "Mr. Williamson, I can't thank you enough for everything you did for me." "Helen, I just did my job. You did the hard part. You had the courage to defend yourself when it would have been easier to stay silent." That afternoon, I decided to do something I had been postponing. I went to the cemetery where George rested. I hadn't visited his grave in months, busy with my new life, with rebuilding everything I had lost. I cleaned the gravestone carefully. I changed the wilted flowers for fresh gladiolus, his favourites. I sat on the bluish grass, not caring about dirtying my skirt. "It's all over now, my love," I told him softly. "I regained our dignity. I regained the value of what we built together. And although it almost cost me our son, I think in the end I regained him too." The wind blew gently, moving the leaves of the trees. I wanted to believe it was George telling me he was proud. "I wish you could see Matthew. He looks so much like Robert when he was little. He has that same loud laugh, that same curiosity about everything, and he calls me Grandma with so much affections that sometimes I forget all the bad things that happened." I stayed there for another hour, telling him everything. The Sundays with Robert, the talks at the community centre, the women I had helped, my apartment that smelled of coffee and fresh flowers every morning. When I got up to leave, I left something next to the flowers. It was a photocopy of the final sentence. I wanted George to know somehow that I had fought for what he had left me. The following Sunday, Robert arrived with news. "Mom, I got a promotion, regional manager. It's a lot more money, but also more responsibility." "Congratulations, son. Your father would be proud." "There's something else. With the raise, I want to start paying you back. Not everything. I probably can never fully compensate for the $850,000, but I want to try." "Robert, I don't need it." "Yes, you do, and I need to do it. Please, let me try to repair at least some of the damage." I accepted, not because I needed the money, but because I understood that it was part of his healing process. Every month, Robert deposited $10,000 into my account. It wasn't much for him with his new salary, but for me it represented something more valuable than money. It represented responsibility, maturity, redemption. In October, I turned 70 years old. Robert organized a surprise party in my apartment. It wasn't big. There were no luxuries. Laura, my sister Connie, who traveled from Florida, Patricia with her daughters, some new neighbors who had become friends, and the women from the support group I had formed were there. Matthew ran toward me shouting, "Surprise, Grandma, I helped you choose the cake." It was chocolate, my favorite. Simple, but perfect. During the party, as I watched all those people who truly loved me, who were celebrating with me, not out of obligation, but out of genuine affection, I understood something. I had gained much more than I had lost. Yes, I had lost money. I had lost years of relationship with my son. I had lost the illusion of the perfect family. But I had gained self-respect. I had gained authenticity. I had gained the certainty that I could survive, that I was stronger than I thought. At the end of the night, when everyone had left, Robert stayed to help me clean up. "Mum, can I ask you something?" "Of course, son." "Have you forgiven me? Truly, not just in words." I stopped, putting down the plate I was washing. I looked him straight in the eyes. "Do you know what I learned from all this, Robert? That forgiveness is not an event, it is a process. There are days when I see you with Matthew and my heart is filled with love, and I feel like everything is behind us. There are other days when I remember that staff quarter and I still feel anger. I understand. But what I can tell you is that I chose to let go of the resentment. Not for you, but for me. Because carrying that weight was killing me. So yes, I have forgiven you. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means remembering without pain. Robert nodded with tears in his eyes. That's all I can ask for. That night, after he left, I sat on my balcony like every night. But this time, with George's watch in my hands, listening to its constant ticking, I thought about the Helen who answered that call almost 2 years ago, the one who heard "We forgot to tell you" and felt her world collapse. That Helen was broken, lost, resigned. Now I was different, not better or worse, just different. One who knew how to set boundaries, one who understood that self-love is not selfishness, one who had learned that sometimes you have to break everything to rebuild better. The city shone before me with its millions of lights, its millions of stories, and I was just one more. But I was mine, completely mine. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. The cool night air, the distant sound of traffic, the scent of the gardenias on my balcony. All of that was real. All of that was mine. And for the first time in years, that was more than enough. 2.5 years after that call that changed my life, I found myself sitting on my balcony again, but this time with a notebook in my hands. One of the women in the support group had suggested I write my complete story. Mrs. Helen, what you went through needs to be told. There are thousands of women who need to know they are not alone, that they can get out of this. So I started writing. Not to publish a book or anything grand, just to leave a testimony. So that one day when Matthew grew up, he could read these pages and understand why his grandmother did what she did. It was a sunny Saturday in March when I finished the last page. That very day, Robert arrived with unexpected news. "Mum, Vanessa is leaving the country. She got a job in London, England. She's taking Matthew." My heart skipped a beat. "What about joint custody?" The judge authorized the move. Vanessa met all the requirements of her probation. She's been going to therapy. She paid all the fines. The judge considered that it's better for Matthew to have stability, even if it means living far away. And how do you feel? Devastated, but also relieved. Vanessa needs to start over, away from all of this, and maybe, just maybe, that will make her a better person. For Matthew. Did you forgive her too? Robert paused. I don't know if the word is forgive, but I understood that she is also a victim of her own lies. She grew up believing that money and appearances were everything. She never had an example of real love. In a way, Mum, she's a poorer than us, even if she has that job in Europe. A week later, we all went to the airport. Vanessa looked different. No excessive makeup, simple clothes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She almost looked human. When she saw me, she hesitated. Then she approached with Matthew by the hand. "Mrs. Helen, she began, but the words got stuck. "Take good care of my grandson," I said simply. "He's the only thing that matters now." She nodded, her eyes glistening. "I will, and I'm sorry for everything. I know it's not enough, but it's the truth." "Then I wish you well, Vanessa. Truly." I knelt in front of Matthew, who was now 3.5 years old. "My love, you're going to a very beautiful place with your mummy. But Grandma will always be here, right? We'll talk on video calls. I'm going to send you letters and drawings." "And my dinosaur George?" he asked in his little voice. "Your dinosaur George is going to watch over you from here, my angel, and your grandpa in heaven too." I hugged him with all my heart. trying to store that moment in my memory for the difficult days that would come. We watched them go through security. Matthew turned back 3 times to wave goodbye with his little hand. Robert was crying silently next to me. "My son is leaving, Mum. He's going far away. But not forever. He'll come back on vacations, and when he grows up, he will decide where he wants to be." On the way back home, Robert walked me to my apartment. "Mum, I know things will never be the same as before, but do you think one day we can be a normal family? Without all this weight of the past?" "Son, normal families don't exist. They all have their problems, their secrets, their scars. What matters, cheese, is if we are willing to heal together. And are you willing?" "I've been willing for 2.5 years, Robert. Waiting for you to finish processing everything. Waiting for you to grow up enough to understand what family really means." That night, alone again, I opened the notebook where I had written my story. I read the last line I had written, and then I understood that freedom has a price, but dignity is priceless. I thought about all the road travelled, about that Helen who lived in a staff quarter asking permission to exist, about the one who opened her laptop and sent that email that changed everything, about the one who confronted her son in a courtroom, about the one who rebuilt her life from scratch at 68 years old. Every one of those Helens was me, and all together they had created the woman I was now. My phone vibrated. It was a message from one of the women in the support group, Rose, who had found the courage to sue her family last week. "Mrs. Helen, thank you for teaching me that it's never too late to take back my life. I started living again today." I smiled. Maybe that was the real victory. Not the money recovered, nor the house, not even the rebuilt relationship with Robert. It was knowing that my pain had served a purpose, that my story could light the way for other women trapped in the same darkness. I got up and walked to the window. The city stretched out before me, alive, pulsating, full of stories like mine. Stories of women who learn late but learn eventually, who fall down but get back up, who lose but gain the most important thing, themselves. I took George's watch from the table. "We did it, my love. It wasn't how we thought, but we did it. Our son learned. Our grandson will know where he comes from. And I became myself again." The clock showed 10 o'clock in the evening. A new day would begin in 2 hours. A new day where I would choose how to live, what to do, who to be with. A new day of freedom. Because in the end, that's what I had won. Not a perfect house or a perfect family. I had won the freedom to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to set boundaries, to say no, to say yes, to live without asking permission. And that, I discovered, was the true wealth. Not what you possess, but what you don't allow them to take from you. Not what you inherit, but what you build with your own hands. Not what others think of you, but what you think of yourself. I closed the window and turned off the lights. Tomorrow would be another day. One more of this new life that I had fought so hard to achieve. And as I got into bed in my small, but my own apartment, in my space that smelled of coffee and gardenias, I smiled. Because finally, after so many years, I had come home. Not to a house of bricks and cement, but to myself.